My name is Jessica M. Schaefer, and I'm 28 years old. I was sitting in my car outside the Meridian Hotel with the engine running, watching my boyfriend smooth his shirt collar in the passenger seat like he was preparing to step into a different life. The valet stand glowed under warm lights. Glass doors opened and closed with waves of laughter spilling out. A couple walked past us arm in arm, and for a second I felt relieved, like we were about to join them, like we were about to be normal. We'd been together for 2 years. We shared an apartment, split the bills, talked about getting a dog like it was already decided. I knew his coffee order. He knew the exact way I liked my pillow arranged at night. We weren't a fling. We weren't casual. We were the kind of couple people assume will end up married just because you've lasted long enough. Tonight was supposed to be different. He'd been talking about this office party for weeks. The open bar, the speeches, the embarrassing karaoke rumors. He bought a new tie. He got a haircut 2 days early, so it would settle. He even asked me what I was wearing, which he never did, and that little detail made me stupidly hopeful. I got ready like it mattered. Not because I needed their approval, but because I wanted to feel like I belonged next to him in every room he entered. I wore a fitted black dress and heels that made my feet ache even before we left. I curled my hair, sprayed perfume, checked the mirror, and told myself I looked like the girlfriend of a man who was proud to be seen with her. The drive there was normal. That almost hurt the most when I replay it. He joked about his coworkers. He squeezed my hand at a red light and thanked me for coming. He sounded warm, relaxed, like the party was just another stop in a life we were building together. I believed him because believing felt easier than doubting, and I'd been practicing easy for a long time. When we pulled up to the valet, his energy shifted so quickly it felt like the temperature dropped. He stared at the hotel entrance, then checked his phone, then adjusted his seatbelt like he suddenly didn't know what to do with his hands. His smile faded, not completely, but enough that I noticed. Hey, he said, voice careful, the way people sound when they're trying to slide a knife in without you feeling it right away. Would you mind if I went in first? I blinked. What do you mean? He gave a light laugh, like I was being dramatic already. Just don't walk in with me, he said. They'll think it's weird. For a second, I didn't understand what he'd said because my brain tried to protect me. Weird like what? Weird like a couple arriving together. Weird like the man who sleeps next to me every night might have a girlfriend. Weird like I exist. The valet was 10 feet away, waiting, pretending not to listen. Another couple stepped out of a car behind us, laughing, clearly together, clearly unbothered by the idea of being seen. My boyfriend didn't look at them. He looked at the doors like they were an audition. Weird how, I asked, and my voice came out steady, which surprised me. He waved his hand like it was nothing. You know, he said, smiling without warmth. Like, why is there a random girl here? It's a work thing. I just don't want it to be awkward. Random girl. The word sat in my chest like ice. I thought about the last 2 years. The rent I paid on the first of every month without being late. The groceries I bought. The sink I fixed with a YouTube tutorial while he stood behind me, scrolling his phone. The nights I listened to him complain about people at work, repeating names I'd never met like they were characters in our shared life. I thought about the way he had kissed me goodbye that morning and said, "This is going to be fun." I stared at him and realized he wasn't nervous about the party. He was nervous about me being connected to him in front of people whose opinions he cared about more than he cared about my dignity. Jessica, he said, and the way he said my name sounded like a warning, not affection. Don't do this. You're being too sensitive. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask him to repeat it so I could pretend I misheard. Something went still inside me. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity, sharp and cold and clean. I stopped the car completely, put it in park. My hands stayed on the wheel. He opened the door like I'd agreed. He stepped out, smoothed his jacket, checked his reflection in the car window, and walked toward the hotel entrance without looking back. The valet looked at me and asked if I was staying. No, I said, and pulled away from the curb. I didn't speed. I didn't blast music. I didn't call anyone. I drove home in complete silence, turn signal clicking at every intersection, the city lights blurred at the edges of my vision, like my eyes were refusing to focus. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that happens when your mind is making a decision your heart hasn't caught up to yet. On the way home, I kept thinking, maybe he'll text. Maybe he'll say he panicked. Maybe he'll apologize. Maybe he'll realize how it sounded. Then another part of me, quieter but firmer, reminded me that this wasn't a one-time panic. This was a pattern. The The way he never posted photos of us. The way he introduced me as his friend to a coworker at the grocery store last month. The way his colleagues didn't know my name even though we'd been together for 2 years. The way he'd avoided bringing me to anything work-related, like I was a liability. I'd filed each moment away with an excuse because I didn't want to be the insecure girlfriend, the clingy girlfriend, the girlfriend who needed proof. Sitting in that car alone, I finally admitted what I'd been refusing to say out loud. I wasn't being private, I was being hidden. When I pulled into our apartment complex, the building looked normal, like nothing had changed, and that made me want to scream. I parked in our usual spot and walked upstairs, heels clicking against the concrete, each step louder than it should have been. Inside, the air still smelled like his cologne. His shoes sat by the door. The coffee mug I bought him for his birthday was on the counter, half full, like he'd left and expected to come back to the same life. I walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. My suitcase was on the top shelf. I pulled it down and set it on the bed. I packed quickly and carefully, the way you do when you're afraid if you pause, you'll talk yourself out of it. Clothes, laptop, charger, running shoes, the watch my dad gave me. I didn't take anything that belonged to both of us. No dishes, no furniture, no picture frames, no books we bought together. I wasn't trying to punish him by taking things. I was trying to leave without creating another excuse for him to call me dramatic. At the kitchen counter, I found a grocery receipt and flipped it over. My hand didn't shake as I wrote the words. Didn't want to make it weird. I left my key next to the note and walked out, locking the door behind me, then sliding the key through the slot like I was returning something that was never really mine. In the hallway, I paused for half a second, waiting for the grief to hit me like a wave. Instead, I felt lighter. I checked into a Comfort Inn 20 minutes away, off the highway, paid for 3 nights, and carried my suitcase to a room that smelled like detergent and stale air. The clerk didn't ask questions. I didn't offer answers. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the blank wall, then turned my phone off completely. For the first time in 2 years, I was alone, and it felt better than being invisible. The next morning, I turned my phone back on at exactly 7:12 a.m., not because I was ready to deal with anything, but because I needed to see the damage before it rotted quietly in the background. The screen lit up and kept lighting up, notification after notification stacking so fast it almost looked fake. 43 missed calls, 18 voicemails, 62 text messages, all from him. I didn't feel panic, I felt confirmation. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, made coffee from the little plastic machine that spat out lukewarm bitterness, and started scrolling. The first few texts were confused, almost casual. Where are you? Did you leave the party early? Are you mad? Then the tone shifted. Your closet is empty. What is going on? Please tell me this is a joke. By the time I reached the later messages, the words had lost any sense of control. Please call me back. I don't understand. We can talk about this like adults. You're overreacting. This isn't fair. I listened to exactly one voicemail. Just one. His voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it, stripped of confidence, stripped of authority. Hey, it's me. I just got home and I don't know where you are. Your stuff is gone. Can you call me back? Please. I deleted the rest without listening, not out of spite, out of self-preservation. I knew if I kept listening, I'd start translating his panic into regret, and regret into forgiveness, and forgiveness into me going back to being small. I blocked his number and stared out the window at a parking lot full of identical sedans. It felt surreal how quickly a life could collapse into a suitcase and a motel keycard. By noon, I was sitting in a diner 2 blocks away, red vinyl booth, cracked menu, coffee refilled without asking. I ordered pancakes I barely touched and opened apartment listings on my phone. I realized something quietly devastating and oddly empowering at the same time. I could afford to leave. I'd been paying half the rent for 2 years. I'd saved more than I thought because I was the one who planned, the one who budgeted, the one who always thought ahead. I wasn't stranded. I was unanchored. That afternoon, a message came through from an unknown number. His work phone. I know you blocked me. Please just talk to me. I don't understand why you're doing this. What did I do that was so bad? I stared at that text for a long time. I almost typed a paragraph. Almost explained every moment I'd swallowed discomfort to keep the peace. Every time I'd accepted being introduced as less than I was. Every time I'd told myself I was being dramatic. Instead, I typed one sentence. You didn't want to make it weird. I didn't. Then I blocked that number too. 3 days later, I signed a lease on a studio apartment in Maplewood. 400 square feet, hardwood floors, big windows that let in morning light, a kitchen barely big enough for one person, which somehow felt perfect. I moved in with 2 suitcases and a futon I bought secondhand. The man who helped me load it into my car asked if I was moving to the city. I said, "No, I'm starting over." He nodded like he understood. My ex didn't stop trying. Emails came next. Long ones, apologetic ones, defensive ones. He said he didn't mean it the way it sounded. He said work was complicated. He said he panicked. He said I embarrassed him by leaving without talking. He said I owed him a conversation after 2 years. That word again, owed. I archived every email without responding. A week after I moved, he showed up at my office. I saw him through the glass doors, standing near my car in the parking lot, arms crossed, jaw tight, looking like a man waiting to reclaim something he believed belonged to him. I turned around and told my manager I needed to work remotely for the rest of the week. I wasn't afraid of him. I was afraid of being pulled back into a conversation designed to make me doubt myself. 2 weeks later, I got a message from Jenna, one of his coworkers I'd met at the gym months earlier. "Hey, I heard you guys broke up. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I always thought he was weird about you. He barely ever mentioned having a girlfriend. I didn't even know you existed until recently." I read that message 3 times. Barely mentioned. Didn't know you existed. That night, I went for a long run through Maplewood, lungs burning, legs aching, tears blurring the sidewalk lights. I wasn't crying because I missed him. I was crying because I finally understood how long I'd been erasing myself to fit into his life. A month passed, then 2. His messages stopped. The silence felt different this time, not tense, not waiting, just empty in a way that allowed something else to grow. I bought a real bed, a small couch, a plant I somehow kept alive. I cooked dinners just for myself. I stopped checking my phone every time it buzzed. One afternoon, I ran into his boss at the grocery store. He recognized me instantly. "Oh, you're his girlfriend. Or were you his roommate?" he said, half joking. "Girlfriend," I replied calmly. "We broke up." He looked genuinely surprised. "Wow, I didn't even know you two were together." That was the moment it fully clicked. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't been sensitive. I hadn't been insecure. I had been hidden. 4 months after the night at the Meridian, I matched with someone new. His name was Daniel. He taught high school history and had a dog named Atlas. On our second date, he posted a photo of us at a coffee shop, both of us mid-laugh, unfiltered, imperfect. He tagged me. I stared at that notification longer than I should have. "Is that okay?" he asked. "I can take it down if you want." I shook my head. "No, it's perfect." For the first time in a long time, I wasn't asking to be seen. I just was. The strange thing about finally being seen is realizing how long you lived without it. After that photo with Daniel, nothing dramatic happened. No fireworks, no declarations, just a quiet shift inside me, like something settling into place. I stopped second-guessing my reactions. I stopped replaying old conversations in my head, wondering if I had misheard a tone or imagined a pause. When someone shows you who they are, really shows you, clarity has a way of sticking. Daniel was different in ways that felt almost suspicious at first. He showed up when he said he would. If he was running late, he texted. When we met his friends, he introduced me without hesitation, without qualifiers. "This is Jessica, my girlfriend." The words landed softly, but they stayed. I didn't realize how much weight I'd been carrying until it was gone. Meanwhile, the remnants of my old life kept trying to drift back in. A mutual friend mentioned in passing that my ex had been asking about me. Not directly, of course. It was always framed as concern. "Is she okay? She seems really different lately." I kept my response neutral. "I'm fine. Better than fine," and that was the truth. About 6 weeks after I moved into the studio, an envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address. My name written in handwriting I recognized instantly. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the kitchen counter for 2 days, walking past it every morning like it was something fragile that might break if I touched it. When I finally opened it, the letter was short. Too short for everything it wanted to undo. He wrote that he'd been thinking a lot, that he didn't mean to hurt me, that the party had been stressful, that he hadn't realized how it came across. He said he missed me. He said he wished I'd talk to him instead of disappearing. He ended it with, "I hope someday we can clear the air." Clear the air, as if the air hadn't been thick for 2 years. I folded the letter carefully and threw it away, not angrily, not triumphantly, just deliberately. I wasn't punishing him. I was choosing myself. A few days later, something unexpected happened. His sister reached out. We had always been cordial, not close, but friendly enough at holidays. She texted me out of the blue. I didn't know what to expect. An apology, an explanation, a request. Instead, she wrote, I just wanted you to know I always wondered why he never brought you around more. I thought it was strange. You deserved better. I stared at that message longer than any of his apologies. Validation has a strange timing. It always arrives after you no longer need it. As fall settled in, my life took on a rhythm that felt entirely my own. Work picked up in a good way. I started saying yes to projects I actually cared about, and no to ones that drained me. I reconnected with friends I'd quietly drifted from, people who welcomed me back without questions or commentary. No one asked why I left. They just made room. Daniel and I took things slowly, on purpose. We talked about boundaries, about expectations, about what visibility meant to each of us. One night over takeout, I told him about the Meridian Hotel, about sitting in the car while someone I loved walked away from me in public. He listened without interrupting, without trying to fix it. When I finished, he reached for my hand and said, I'm really glad you didn't stay. So was I. The final piece of closure came in the most mundane way possible. I was cleaning out old photos on my phone when I found the mirror selfie we took before the party, the last photo of us together. For a moment, I felt that old ache, the version of myself who still hoped, still waited. Then I deleted it. I didn't need proof anymore. I had learned something I didn't know I needed to learn. Love doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't ask you to shrink, to wait outside, to come in later when it's convenient. Love doesn't make you feel like a secret. And once you know that, once it settles into your bones, you can't unknow it. By the time winter arrived, I realized something quietly profound. I wasn't healing anymore. I was healed. That didn't mean I never thought about him. It meant when I did, the memories didn't have teeth. They were flat, almost informational, like reading a case study about a version of myself I no longer recognized. I could see the pattern clearly now, the way I had slowly accepted being minimized because it happened 1 inch at a time. No single moment dramatic enough to justify leaving. Just enough discomfort to keep me adjusting myself instead. Daniel noticed the change before I did. One night, we were walking through a neighborhood lit with Christmas lights, houses glowing soft and gold against the dark, and he stopped suddenly. He turned to me and said, You don't apologize for existing. I laughed, confused, and asked what he meant. He shrugged. You used to say sorry for everything. Being late, taking space, having an opinion. You don't do that anymore. He was right, I didn't. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a notification I hadn't expected. A LinkedIn message. From him. Professional tone. Casual wording. He wrote that he hoped I was doing well, that he had been reflecting, that he wanted to apologize for how things ended. He said he had grown a lot since then, that he was learning to communicate better, that he didn't expect anything in return, but wanted me to know he was sorry. I stared at the screen, not angry, not tempted, just tired. Not of him, of the emotional labor it would take to respond. So I didn't. That silence wasn't passive, it was intentional. I had learned the difference. A week after that, something almost funny happened. I ran into him in the most mundane place possible, a grocery store near my apartment. I was standing in the produce aisle comparing avocados when I heard my name. I turned, and there he was, looking older somehow. Not in years, but in posture, less certain, less polished. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled, tentative. Hey, he said, you look good. I nodded. Hi. He asked how I'd been. I said I was well. He asked where I was living now. I told him Maplewood. He commented that it was a nice area. I thanked him. The conversation hovered on the surface, careful and restrained, like we were both afraid of stepping on a landmine. Then he said it. I've been thinking a lot about that night. I didn't answer right away. I placed the avocados back, picked a different one, and finally looked at him. So have I. He waited, hopeful. I could see it in his eyes. The opening. The chance. What I realized, I continued calmly, is that it wasn't just that night. That night just made it impossible to ignore anymore. His face fell slightly. I never meant to make you feel like you didn't matter. I know, I said, and I meant it. But intent doesn't erase impact. He nodded slowly. He looked like he wanted to say more, to explain, to apologize again. I didn't give him the space, not out of cruelty, but clarity. I'm happy now, I said, and I don't want to revisit something that only existed because I kept accepting less than I deserved. There it was, the truth, clean and unembellished. He exhaled. I'm glad, he said. Really. We said goodbye like acquaintances, not enemies, not unfinished business, just two people whose paths had diverged for a reason. When I got home, Daniel was already there, cooking dinner. He looked up and smiled when I walked in. "Hey," he said, "how was your day?" "Uneventful," I replied, hanging up my coat. Later that night, curled up on the couch, I told him about the grocery store encounter. He listened, nodding, and didn't ask questions that weren't his to ask. When I finished, he kissed my forehead and said, "I'm proud of you." For the first time, those words didn't make me feel small. They made me feel solid. Because the truth was, I didn't leave to punish anyone. I left because I finally understood that love doesn't make you feel like an inconvenience. Love doesn't ask you to wait in the car. Love doesn't tell you to come in later. And once you walk away from being invisible, you never go back. The real test of a decision isn't how it feels in the moment. It's how it holds up when life gets quiet again. When there's no adrenaline, no confrontation, no obvious villain to push against. Just days stacking on top of each other, ordinary and unremarkable. That's when you find out whether you chose freedom or just ran from discomfort. For me, the quiet felt steady, safe, almost boring in the best way. Daniel and I never rushed anything. We didn't move in together. We didn't make big promises. We built routines instead. Wednesday dinners, Sunday morning walks, texts that said, "home safe," without needing a follow-up question. The consistency felt unfamiliar at first. I kept waiting for the catch, for the moment where I'd have to negotiate my place again. It never came. One night, after a long day at work, I caught myself doing something strange. I was practicing how I would explain myself, out loud, in the shower, rehearsing reasons that no one had asked for. I stopped mid-sentence and laughed. Old habits die hard. That's when it hit me. The invisibility I had lived with wasn't just something he did to me. It was something I learned to accept, something I participated in because it felt safer than risking conflict, because being overlooked felt easier than being rejected outright. Owning that was uncomfortable, but it was also empowering. A few weeks later, I got invited to a work function. Nothing fancy, a networking mixer at a downtown art space. Daniel offered to come with me, no pressure. "Only if you want," he said. "I'm good either way." I wanted him there. We walked in together, no hesitation, no pauses. When colleagues asked who he was, I introduced him without thinking. "This is Daniel, my boyfriend." The words felt normal, natural, like they should have all along. At one point, someone pulled me aside and said, "You seem really grounded lately." I smiled. "I am." On the drive home, Daniel reached over and squeezed my hand at a red light. The same gesture I remembered from that night outside the Meridian. This time, it didn't precede disappearance. It was just connection. That contrast stayed with me. A month after that, something else happened. I ran into an old friend, someone who had known me during the worst stretch of that relationship. We caught up over coffee, trading updates, laughing at how different our lives looked now. She studied me for a moment, then said, "You're quieter, but not smaller." That might have been the most accurate description anyone had ever given me. The final closure didn't come from another apology or conversation. It came from a moment so small I almost missed it. I was scrolling through my phone one evening and noticed that I hadn't checked his social media in months. Not once. The urge was gone. I didn't need to know if he had changed, or if he regretted anything, or if he was happier now. Because I was. That night, Daniel fell asleep on the couch with his head on my shoulder, some documentary playing softly in the background. I watched him breathe, slow and even, and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Not because he saved me. He didn't. I saved myself. I learned that love isn't about being chosen in public and hidden in private. It's about being acknowledged everywhere, even when no one is watching, especially then. And once you experience that, truly experience it, there's no going back to being a secret. The strangest thing about choosing yourself is how ordinary life becomes afterward. Not empty, not dull, just stable. The chaos fades first, then the noise, and eventually, even the echoes. I didn't wake up one morning feeling triumphant. There was no cinematic moment where I looked in the mirror and smiled like a new person. What happened instead was quieter. I stopped bracing for impact. I stopped checking my phone with a knot in my stomach. I stopped replaying conversations in my head, wondering what I could have said differently to deserve more space, more respect, more visibility. That version of me didn't disappear overnight. She just stopped driving the decisions. Daniel and I eventually took a trip together, not a grand one, not a test of anything. A long weekend by the coast. We booked it 2 weeks in advance. We split the cost without discussion. We packed separately. On the day we left, He was standing next to me at the hotel check-in desk, hand resting lightly at my back, exactly where it had been all along. No hesitation, no staging, no one walking ahead. One evening on that trip, we sat on a quiet beach, shoes kicked off, the sky fading from orange to deep blue. He asked me casually what the hardest part of my last relationship had been. I thought about it longer than I expected. Convincing myself I was asking for too much, I said finally. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush to reassure me. He just nodded like he understood. You weren't, he said. You were just asking the wrong person. That was it. No speech, no grand declaration, just truth, delivered without drama. A few weeks after that trip, I passed the Meridian again. Same glass doors, same valet stand, same polished entrance that had once felt like a gate I wasn't allowed through. I didn't slow down this time. I didn't feel the urge to look. The place had lost its meaning. Later that night, I deleted the last photo I still had saved from that relationship. The mirror selfie, the one where we looked good together, but I remembered feeling uncertain even as it was taken. I hadn't kept it out of nostalgia. I'd kept it as proof that something real had existed. I didn't need proof anymore. When people ask me now what happened, I don't tell the whole story. I don't talk about parking lots or hotel rooms or empty closets. I just say we wanted different things, and it's true. He wanted a version of me that fit neatly into the background of his life. I wanted to be seen. There's nothing dramatic about that, just incompatible truths. The last thing I learned, and maybe the most important, is this. Walking away doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop negotiating your worth. It means you recognize that love should never feel like a favor or a performance or something you have to earn by shrinking. I didn't leave to teach anyone a lesson. I left because I finally understood that being invisible is still a kind of loneliness, even when you're not alone. And now, when I walk into rooms, I don't wonder if I belong there. I know I do.